This is the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast.
Oh no! We suck again!
I'm getting confused. What game are you calling?
I'm calling both games!
It is caught by Kelsey! Touchdown! Kansas City!
I need 3 of those things, baby! We ain't done yet! We ain't done yet! You like that? You like that? I like that!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast. I am Ruckus, always causing a ruckus.
Ba 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 da da ba ba da 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 ba 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 da da ba ba da 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 da. And I'm Ruckus the Menace.
And this is episode number 115 of the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast, the best sports podcast in the land. And we'll get right into the good, the bad, the ugly. You want me to roll the tumbleweed footage real quick?
How did he not catch the troll?
Alright, what's the good in sports this week, Spinnis?
Well, the good is that I successfully trolled you with Rocky Top. No, I'm just kidding.
Boo! Get out of here! Alright, podcast ended. We'll see you guys in the next one. This has been Ruckus and The Menace. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. So the good on this is Shohei Ohtani, history maker. He has now gotten, I would say he's about, I'm double checking the numbers now. He's at 53 homers and 55 stolen bases. But he successfully did it earlier this week in becoming the first ever 50-50 club member. And during the game that he did it, he also had another first since 1901. The game of which he got it, he had more than one home run, more than one stolen base, and 5 hits in that game.
Yeah, that man is a freaking machine.
The NL MVP should be unanimous. The AL might have a little bit of controversy and debate. And the AL playoff race right now has a lot more players, or a lot more teams still currently not mathematically out. But Shohei Ohtani has just had a stranglehold on the NL MVP race. And this is a very meaningful accomplishment because just last year, they had added Ronald Acuna to the 40-40 club. Now, Shohei Ohtani has done it at 40-40 and then has raised the bar a step further. I think the question is there going to be another player that potentially could join Ohtani here within the next decade or so?
Depends on the talent and depends on just the sheer factor of health and just, again, talent. Because Bobby Witt, when you were talking about the AL MVP candidates being a huge toss-up, I think Bobby Witt has had his best season since becoming a Royal. And I think it would be kind of a letdown if he isn't the AL MVP.
Well, here are the things that Bobby Witt does have going for him. He does lead the league in batting average. And he is 11 points ahead of Aaron Judge. Even Vlad Jr. right now is ahead of Aaron Judge. Judge has the home runs. Judge has the RBIs. But Bobby Witt, the biggest thing that he has going for him, he's the only player in Major League Baseball right now that has eclipsed the 200 hit mark so far. And this is with about 5-6 games left. I think we're now at 5 games left.
Yep, about there.
So that is something there. And baseball is going to be entertaining, and I think we will have some we'll have to figure out something for the MLB playoffs. I just don't know what we're going to do just yet. But with baseball aside, we now can move on to what wasn't so great this week.
I think for the bad this week, I think it's the Chargers dealing with injuries to Slater, Alt, and Herbert, and a suspension from Derwin James for illegal hits. And I think Derwin James, if after football he decides to do something to entertain the folks, I think it's the WWE, because my man can suplex.
Oh, no, I still am going to say John Ridgway. Did you see? Do you remember that this man just powerbombed Damian Pierce? I mean,
Nope.
suplex is one thing, but no, everybody was calling it a suplex. I'm like, no, he had him more in a power bomb.
Well, he powerbombed Travis Kelce a year ago, so I mean, how...
Who, Ridgway or Kels or Derwin?
Derwin.
Okay, Derwin does have strength.
Derwin has that give me your lunch money or else strength.
And he's quick, too. He's quick on top of that. But I think that this could very well put the Chiefs in a very, very advantageous position, even though the Chargers are currently sitting at 2-1. Even though the Chargers are sitting at 2-1, they're dealing with the costs of it. And I think that what's interesting is that the Chargers are a very run-heavy team as well. I think that the Chargers are probably set to get smoked. But we'll find out about those predictions here a little later.
Yep.
And the downright ugly this week involves Reggie Bush. He is suing the NCAA, USC, and the Pac-12 over NIL compensation that wasn't even around or really legal for college athletes to have during Reggie Bush's hey.
Bush.
I think more so in this case, you had to spend all this time lobbying just to get your Heisman Trophy back.
Bush.
Reggie, why don't you just shut up? Take you and count your blessings.
Bush.
And just leave it at that. Stop going for more. You're asking for too much.
Bush.
But shut up, count your blessings, and take what you're given. Dang it!
Bush. I just love saying that because it reminds me of that Bush Light commercial. Bush beer.
Oh no! I think where you were. I think you had to love where I was going with that.
Yeah, I love that one too. The Bush. Shut up.
And take it. I think we found the title of the episode already, but shut up, count your blessings, and take what you're given.
Alright, you don't need to listen any further, audience. Just kidding. You should listen to us.
Oh,
please,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
For
Definitely listen to us further. I mean, we've been causing enough problems to say, oh, we can kind of cut this short. Nah. You're missing the good parts of the action.
And that's why they call me Ruckus, because I can make it sound like it's happening, but really it's not. Anyways. Let's continue on.
We can move on to the film room, and da 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 da. I have tied it up thanks to Tennessee and Oklahoma.
But shut up, Spanish.
Oh, I had to, and
now you need to Bush shut up.
All right, so the first game that we have going on here this week for the film room for 2 points, the battle of the little brown jug, and that is Michigan versus Minnesota.
I'm taking Minnesota.
Yeah. And I am you're taking the Gophers?
I think it's going to be kind of an upset because Michigan's talent isn't as good as it was last year, I feel. And honestly, I'm just kind of going off a hunch. Not even based off of just the stats or anything like that. Just straight up, I think Minnesota's going to beat Michigan.
Game's in the big house. It's in
Okay.
Michigan. It's in Ann Arbor. And the
Okay.
only thing I have to say at this point, I'm going with college football fight songs again. Da 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 da. Hail to the victors! I am taking Michigan.
All right, good for you.
And now we have Oklahoma State versus K-State.
So, Cowboys versus the Wildcats, and I will say Emaw every time. Every man a Wildcat, Kansas State.
Okay, so this one is not the Farmageddon rivalry. It's Iowa State, Kansas State for that.
Mm-hmm.
That may just so you know, that may come up. And actually, we will, and I'm going to guarantee it right now that it is going to be on our prediction list. We will have that game up for prediction for Farmageddon between Kansas State and Iowa State, but that is not going to be until November 30th when that game will be played. But in this case, I also am taking Kansas State. That one also was for 2 points. For 2 points, Louisville and Notre Dame.
I'm picking Louisville because Notre Dame has been kind of lackluster.
I do agree that Notre Dame has been a little down, but this game's at Notre Dame. I think I'm going to go with the Golden Domers. I'm going with the Golden Domers. For 2 points, Illinois, Penn State.
I'm picking Illinois. They had the better record, and Penn State, I think, is only. I think they're one game behind, but,
Yeah, but
they
that's
haven't.
also
They haven't lost. They haven't lost either. Neither team has lost yet.
Yeah. Penn State also had another bye week, so I think they had like 2 weeks to prepare for this game. And for those of you that I know that are Nittany Lions fans, we are Penn State. I'm taking the Nittany Lions as this one is in Happy Valley. I'm going with the home crowd here. Penn State. And the last one here.
The finale.
For 5 points. It is Georgia, Alabama in Tuscaloosa.
The main event. I'm gonna pick Georgia because because as Pat McAfee says, they're absolute dogs. Sorry, I was hoping that you would go with me, but that's okay. If you're going Alabama, I would understand, but I'm going with them Bulldogs in Georgia.
What's that coming down the track? It's the Mean Machine in the red and black. Ain't nothing finer in the land than a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan. Go Dogs! Go Dogs! Oh, dogs! Sick 'em! Give me Alabama! I'm pulling a
Also,
Pat McAfee here. Give me Alabama.
also, they're absolute
Dogs.
dogs.
Roll
Yes.
Tide. I'm taking Alabama in this one. We're going to need to make some big swings and have a little bit of disagreement. I am taking the Tide at home.
Boo.
And I had to do the Pat McAfee troll for it, so yeah, give me Alabama.
All right, now we go to the NFL predictions.
And we've got 8 points in the NFL on the block here. Although we just had 13 for college football, we only have 8 for the NFL because there's quite a few stinkers in next week and a couple of I don't know if this one really needs to be picked. Actually, no. On second thought, let's make it 9 points available here.
Uh-oh. Happy feet.
I am going to add a game abruptly. But we are not going to do it until the end.
Oh, you're going to do me like that, Spence?
What?
Oh, Commanders.
The first game here for 3 points. Vikings Packers at Lambeau.
I'm picking the Packers because the Packers have a very big representation at Lambeau as it's their home field. Home field advantage is pretty good. The Packers have been still fairly decent, even with Love out with the leg injury that he suffered in the first game of the season.
I think it was an MCL sprain, but they are. We will talk about it later, but I think they are planning to have Love come back for that game.
And I think in that notion, I think the Packers will just probably stomp over the Vikings a little bit. I don't think they're going to completely stomp them, but I think it's going to be close.
Yeah, I am in the camp of I am going to say in these situations, it is going to be better for me to take the home team in this situation. Though Sam Darnold has found himself a home in Minnesota, Kevin O'Connell is proving that he is becoming one of the NFL's better quarterback whisperers as a head coach. And yeah, I'm going to say it here. I'm taking the Packers at home. The next game that we have on the list for 1 point, Eagles Bucks.
I think it's going to be the Eagles because of the fact that the Eagles might actually get more involved on offense in this game, and their defense has been pretty okay. The Bucks so far have been kind of hit or miss, but I feel like the Eagles at least fully are in line with each other as far as just team in general versus the Bucks. So I'm picking the Eagles for that.
Here is where I am actually now going to say I'm a little nervous about taking the Eagles here. And here's why. Devontae Smith, concussion. Lane Johnson, concussion. Though Saquon Barkley has been running the football well, I believe the Eagles can be exposed or have the susceptibility to be exposed a little bit in the passing game. Chris Godwin has shown himself to be a reliable pass target. And if the Buccaneers can get something with both Rachaad White and Bucky Irving going, I think both of them can also cause potential problems. And plus, I'm also going to say that this game is also at home. I think I'm going to take the Bucks here. I initially went Eagles, but I'm like, wait, Devontae Smith is out with a concussion? And all the linebacking core for the Bucks has kind of started to shown some improvement over certain certain circumstances, although they didn't have a great performance against Denver yesterday. I think I'm gonna be a little aggressive here, and I'm gonna take the Bucks.
All right. The next one is the Chiefs versus the Chargers. And as a biased Chiefs fan, I'm going to pick the Chiefs because I think with a healthy Mahomes and a healthy defense, we will prevail against the Chargers because the Chargers will most likely not have Justin Herbert, but they will have a still decent defense. But I feel like the Chiefs are going to win barely against the Chargers because it's a rivalry game. They're always pretty close.
Here's where I'm at. I think the Chiefs take this a lot more decisively than you think. There is going to have to come a time where the Chiefs beat somebody down and it's not close. This game has got to be it. No questions asked. I am taking the Chiefs here, but the Chiefs with no Herbert, or the Chargers with no Herbert, the potential for not having Slater, the potential for not having Alt, so the entire exterior of the offensive line depleted. And no Derwin James to lead the secondary because he's suspended. I gotta take the Chiefs, and it is not going to be close. For 1 point, the Seahawks and the Lions. This game is at Ford Field.
I think it's going to be the Lions or the Seahawks.
I think this is going to be another game that is going to be a ton of fun to watch. This one is going to be fun because you got Seattle, who can play well with having DK Metcalf be able to get the ball. There's a chance Kenneth Walker could come back, but otherwise it's going to be Charbonnet on the ground. The Detroit Lions will probably try and control the ball with their holistic offense. I would feel very remiss in saying that the Lions should win this game at home. How they're going to do it, it's going to vary, but I think it's doable. And last but not least, since this one's kind of very interesting in its scenario. Commanders versus Cardinals. This game is in the desert at Arizona. But the question here, with the Commanders having a very strong primetime showing against the Bengals, which they're putting on a clinic right now. Can the Commanders improve to 3-1 potentially? Barring or at least can the Commanders get another win?
I think the Commanders will definitely probably most likely get a W against the Cardinals. That's why I picked the Washington Commanders over the Cardinals.
Okay. The fun part with this is going to be how the Commanders do cover Maserati Marv and Marvin Harrison Jr. But I think that the Commanders have done a great job of improving in the secondary and making things look a lot better. I mean, number one receivers are still going to have a field day. But I think that the Commanders' offense will find a way to click on all cylinders for this one. And overall, I think this new era in DC, we are ready to raise hail and go with the Commanders this week. And now, with that said, we move on to the high heat. We're going to go over a grand total of 5 football games in this. And then we'll go over a few more things in our color commentary segment. Some of them involving week 3, others kind of some overlapping decisions throughout the season. But in our NFL week 3 recap, we open up with the New York Giants defeating the Cleveland Browns 21-15. And our question for this game is, could Malik Neighbors be just enough to give Daniel Jones another semblance of job security?
So, in my eyes, I think Malik Neighbors is probably a good target for Daniel Jones, but I don't know if he's the answer because it's a small sample size for now. But I think Daniel Jones, if he keeps it up and um, finds Malik Neighbors more times than not, sure, that would be a huge semblance of job security. But I don't think Daniel Jones is secure right now with his job. I think he still needs to show more.
I still think that Daniel Jones's butt is on fire.
For sure, dude. His ass
As
is
I think
on fire. His butt is so on fire that he needs icy hot.
I don't even think Icy Hot could save it at that point. Because I think that Daniel Jones is on the collapse. And if the Giants don't translate into more wins like they had, I mean, they're winning now, which is shocking enough that they're 1-2. They put themselves in a good position to win last week or the previous week against the Commanders. And now they've actually got a win under their belt against the Browns. Granted that the Browns are right now kind of the thing swirling around in their Super Bowl. It's actually more right now of a toilet than an actual Lombardi. But I digress. I think that Malik Neighbors and Devin Singletary as a whole can elevate the comfort level in the potential of saying, hey, we may be able to weather this storm. But I don't see that the storm is going to be super effective for them to properly weather it with Daniel Jones at quarterback. There will come a time where Daniel Jones will lose his starting quarterback spot. I don't know if it'll be at the end of the season or if it will be somewhere in the middle, but at some point, they're going to have to look another way.
Yep.
The next game here, Vikings 34, Texans 7. And is this a true sign that the Vikings are a legitimate contender and for real? Now that they've kind of beaten a team that we really had. I think we both had the Texans very, very high in the power rankings.
Yes, I think we did too. I think this is a true test for CJ Stroud. As many quarterbacks have had to test themselves and prove worthy of themselves. Mahomes had to deal with this in 2021. And I feel like Stroud's going to have to deal with this now. And the Vikings do have a strong defense with their secondary. And
Brian Flores is also the defensive coordinator here, and they are known for he's known for doing a pretty good job of creating blitzes that will mix you up.
Well, I think that I don't know if the Vikings are for real, but they did show a good showing against the Texans, and I would be a little afraid if I'm a Texans fan, but honestly, if you're a diehard Texans fan, kind of like I'm somewhat of a diehard Chiefs fan, I think you just stick with it and everything will be fine. It's early.
I think the panic level is not that high for the Texans.
Yeah.
Because offensively, they're still trying to figure things out. Defensively, Sam Darnold, you are dealing with one of the number one wide receivers in the NFL, and Justin Jefferson. He's not that simple to stop.
Yeah.
And Cam Akers was serviceable in replacing Joe Mixon and Damian Pierce, but I think it'll be better. I think brighter days continue to be ahead for the Texans, but I think the real test for the Vikings is it really begins next week for them when they take on Green Bay. And here are the next 3 games for the Vikings. The Packers at Lambeau. The Jets at home. Or no, wait a minute. That actually is a London game. You get the Jets in London, and then and then a bye week, and then the Lions at home. Darnold has no structural damage to his knee, but so Darnold may be ready to go. I think that this is, like I've said, the signs are showing that Darnold's found a home in Minnesota, and that the quarterback whisperer that is Kevin O'Connell, and how he's been able to turn quarterback, like maybe quarterbacks that are not as high on the board, and turn them into something. So there's pieces of that. So I am more so saying that there's potential for the Vikings to be considered for real. But I also could see where the challenges may apply. I think the schedule is a little bit easier for the Vikings overall as a whole. Because you still do have the Rams, you still have the Colts, you still have the Jaguars and the Titans will be a tough defense for them.
Mm-hmm.
You get the Bears twice, the Lions twice, the Packers twice, Seattle. So I will say that the schedule is not the most difficult for the Vikings this season. Their biggest tests are going to be really the Jets, the Titans defensively, and the Seahawks, other than obviously the Packers and the Lions. And then as far as offenses for that defense to be tested with, the Jets will be all right. The Lions, the Rams offense, if they get a little bit of health back, especially as they play the Rams on a short week. The Bears are getting better. The Cardinals are creating challenge. Atlanta's an interesting case. So there's a couple of interesting cases of offense for the Vikings to deal with. So the road there may not be as simple for them, but it could be a sign that the Vikings this year they're having the capability of overachieving, because maybe the schedule is not quite, the road schedule wise is not quite as bumpy.
Yeah. All right.
The next one, Eagles 15, Saints 12. Was this game just plain ugly, or a result of injuries and underperformance on both sides?
I think it's a bit of underperformance and an ugly game, because I was not paying attention to who got injured. I just realized later on in the day that the Eagles beat the Saints by 3 points. So I I really couldn't tell you much from that. That's a very crappy answer, but I mean, this is kind of a hit or miss question for if you paid attention or not.
Okay. team stats on both sides of this game here. There was 67. The Eagles outplayed or out total number of played the Falcons, or not the Falcons, the Saints, 67-55. The time of possession, the Eagles had it for 4.5 minutes longer than the Saints. Granted that the Eagles were also running the ball a little bit more, as they had 172 rushing yards to 89. The Saints were just getting absolutely nothing done overall in total yardage. So the Eagles must have had something on the defensive end that was able to keep them in check enough. Jalen Hurts had no touchdowns and an interception despite throwing 300 yards passing. So it was Saquon that was really shouldering the load running the football. Hurts had an interception. Hurts had a fumble lost. Dallas Goedert had 170 yards receiving as a tight end without scoring. Devontae Smith had 79 yards before being out with a concussion. So there were a lot of different things that there, and I think that the Eagles just had the right defensive game plan in place to be able to hold the Saints to what they needed in order to win. And then we're just able to chip some more clock away than the Saints would by running the football more effectively. It was a very low-scoring game, and I think the Eagles had just, whatever they did to figure out defensively to cover what the Saints were able to do, or what they had done in the two previous games, that's exactly what it's come down to. And now we have the next one here of the Broncos. Up 26-7 win on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the question here, is it time to put some respect on Patrick Surtain II's name for being a true shutdown corner in the league?
Because that is sure. Period.
Yeah. So, Darrelle Revis in 2009. This was apparently the best season for Darrelle Revis. That was the year where Revis was shutting down everyone. And Patrick Surtain could be the best corner in the Denver Bronco defense since Champ Bailey. So here's what we got going on here. In the greatest season by a corner for for Darrelle Revis in 2009, Andre Johnson, in the first 3 weeks, week 1, Andre Johnson had 2 catches for 24 yards. Randy Moss, 3 catches for 21 yards. Justin Gage, 3 catches for 28 yards. That is a combined total of 8 catches for 73 yards. Patrick Surtain at this point has had less balls thrown at him that have been caught. 6 catches. The difference between the two, the difference between the yardage is 3 yards, is just a couple of yards in favor of Revis. As Surtain has had 2 for 29, 2 for 29, and 2 for 17. And even 2006 champ Bailey was really good. I do want to look and see if Surtain, along with this, has gotten picks. Has gotten picks on top of that. Does not look like it. Patrick Surtain is what I'm looking for. He does not have an interception. But has had to deflect one pass. So yeah, I am actually going to say this. He belongs in the conversation currently right now. If he holds up at this rate, the opportunity is wide open
To the
for him
great wide open.
to have the chance at being in one of the greatest seasons of all time for a cornerback. And then the last game we're going to talk about here, the Baltimore Ravens 28, the Cowboys 25. Is this a game more about Baltimore getting their mojo back or the implosion of the Dallas Cowboys potentially coming about?
I think, if anything, the Ravens realized that they needed Derrick Henry more, because if you sign a guy for a lot of money and then barely use him, there's really no point in having him on your team. But for Derrick Henry and the Ravens, I think it really helped. But also, Lamar Jackson balled out. But I still, I still feel like at this point you need to mix in more of the Derrick Henry in your offense too. Even though he was used more in this game, I think you still need him more in your offense. But they did enough to win against the Cowboys at the Dallas Cowboys turf in Arlington, or I think it's at Arlington, or I don't know.
Yeah, it is Arlington.
And I don't think Dallas is imploding. I think Dallas just had an unlucky game. I'm not saying that the Cowboys are gonna go to the Super Bowl and win everything. I'm just saying Cowboys had a close game that they lost. That's all I'm gonna say.
Here's where I'm standing on this. There's a lot of finger pointing going on in Dallas, especially on the defensive side. There's a lot of arguing between Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb.
Yep.
There's a lot of dysfunction right now going on in Dallas. And what is the one thing that everyone was complaining about Dallas this season? They have done absolutely nothing this offseason.
Because their offseason weapons were Dak Prescott and CD Lamb.
Yeah, they were more concerned about re-signing their own, and they did very little to really support the things that they needed to improve on. Of which
I think Jerry Jones is trying to somewhat prove a point that, okay, if you're that good, then show me why, and I'll give you this contract. And then he gave him the contract, and then they have been kind of short as of late.
I also will say that I think that the effectiveness of what has been going on in Baltimore, with Baltimore now being able to run the football well, they are the team that will smash the heads running the football and eat them. Because you've got a freight train in Derrick Henry and a speedster in Lamar Jackson. Of course, you're going to have that. There's a thunder and lightning action, and somehow it's going to strike somewhere. It just happened to be this game that Derrick Henry just said, I'm going to just go off.
And maybe he thought thunder and lightning would not be so frightening.
Nope, it's completely frightening. That's thunderbolts of lightning, and they are very, very frightening. But now we move on to the color commentary. And our color commentary this week is good decision, bad decision. We have a few different topics here. And the question is the decision a good or a not so good one? And the first one, we go to Carolina. And Panthers coach Dave Canales choosing to bench Bryce Young and bring in the Red Rifle to start. The end result, a 36-22 victory over the Las Vegas Raiders.
I personally think it was probably a good decision for the Panthers to bench Bryce for a game or however long they need to, because it gives them a chance to reflect and not stress so much on the ball and just learn from a veteran presence, no matter if it's just Andy Dalton or anybody else. But I think Bryce Young can definitely also look at the timing on the offensive line, even though the offensive line was right in front of him for most of the season last season and this season. But I think it will definitely help him learn more.
Yes,
Especially if it's not like in the pocket, like right then and there. It's hard to look from the inside and then also look, but from the outside it's easier to look because you're not actually in the moment and then also running under adrenaline, trying to figure out at the moment what play to run or what to do.
Yes, I fully see that. I fully see that as being something. But here's the other thing I'm going to throw on top of that. I think that this was a good decision because Bryce Young is small. They tried to take the Kyler Murray mold, make it a number 1 overall pick. But I'm sorry, Bryce Young, Kyler Murray, you are not. Even Kyler Murray has his own downside. There's his own downsides. But at the same time, Kyler Murray has been able to actually be effective in spite of that. And I'm going to say that I think it was good for Bryce Young to take the benching. But now what's even more interesting is that teams are looking to trade for him. That this situation in Carolina really is not a good fit for Bryce Young. And as far as Dave Canales as a quarterback whisperer for a quarterback like Bryce Young, QB whisperer Dave Canales, you are not. I mean,
I think that situation in general for the Panthers is just not the greatest. And I mean, if you would have seen this 2 or 3 years ago with Fields being the quarterback for the Bears and how badly that ended because he didn't have any offensive line help and also had zero experience in the pros, didn't really help. But I don't know. I think the Panthers situation just in general has been a crapshoot, and it doesn't help when your GM is Dave Tepper.
but yeah, your owner is David Tepper. Yeah, no. It really
that guy
doesn't help.
can really just kick rocks for all set and done questions.
Honestly, I think that if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, do the same thing Washington did in regards to the owner, your sell the team chants need to be on full blast. Yes, if you are a Carolina Panthers fan, you need to be setting yourself up to say, sell the team, David Tepper. That is another thing. The issues are beyond Dave Canales. And look at what the evidence of what the Washington Commanders are now that. And I'm saying this in a sense of now that Dan Snyder is gone. And I'm saying that more so in a sense that now this is the first full year in the Josh Harris era of the Commanders. Because yes, even though Josh Harris took over the ownership last season, and you could say that that was the first season, no. Last season doesn't count. Last season does not count in the Josh Harris era. Because because when the team was sold, Josh Harris did not have enough time to do absolutely anything. So yes, last year was under the final year of Dan Snyder. And now Washington is sitting at the potential of being 2-1. The next topic here. Do we want to go with Mel Kiper? Or do we want to talk about another number 1 overall pick quarterback?
I think we go with the number 1 quarterback.
This number 1 overall pick quarterback we're talking about here is Caleb Williams. He has a great performance against the Colts. He's shown improvement over the last 3 games, that pretty much his main 3 games that he's had as a starter. But the Bears are 1-2. Are we at the point now where people are thinking buyer's remorse for Caleb Williams now that Jaden Daniels is looking really, really good in a Washington Commanders uniform?
I think out of all the negativity I've showed for Caleb Williams, I think that he is a right fit for the Bears. I think him and Adunze are good for each other, and I think Williams will just learn and develop through the Bears offense, and I feel like the Commanders offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury probably helps a little bit with the Commanders offense there with Daniels, but
Jaden Daniels, yeah.
I think Williams is in a different state with his offensive coordinator. I don't even know his offensive coordinator, to be honest with
I
you.
think it's Shane Waldron, who I think was a former Seattle. I think it was a Seattle coordinator. I think he was the Seattle coordinator that resurrected Geno Smith. Yeah, that Shane Waldron. That is the name of the coach. Yes, he was the... Yeah, he replaced Luke Getsy. Seattle's quarterback coach reported favored hiring Waldron due to his experience in McVay's coaching staff and familiarity with McVay's system. So he was the quarterback coach. He was quarterback coach of the Rams, and then got hired by Seattle as an offensive coordinator, replacing Brian Schottenheimer. Wilson favored him, but he was the offensive coordinator instrumental in replacing or in the comeback player of the year campaign of Geno Smith. But I think that this year for Caleb Williams, the two words that really have to be described here are just growing pains. And that as a whole, in terms of what these growing pains have been, is just simply that.
I think next we should go to the Packers and Vikings discussion.
Well, I think we go here with this and saying the Malik Willis has gone 2-0 as a starter for the Packers. But the Packers plan to have Jordan Love come back against Minnesota. Is this a good decision to have Jordan Love come back so soon, or does this feel very, very rushed?
I think if Love's leg is okay, he should be able to play, but I wouldn't really chance it if Malik Willis is doing good and the momentum is showing up for the Packers. So I think it could be rushed, especially because this type of injury usually takes a little bit of time to recover. So I would say keep Malik Willis in, and if Malik Willis does bad, see how Love does. But other than that, I wouldn't be so gung ho about Love coming back in.
It's an MCL sprain, which anything on your knee doesn't matter what position the player is. It's not that simple. And Malik Willis has done very well as a holdover. But I can understand why the Packers may want to do this because of it's Minnesota. Minnesota's undefeated, and Minnesota is going to be a really, really good team. And it could cause problems for Malik Willis. But if you are so invested in the health of Jordan Love, wouldn't it be better for you to actually not rush him in his return to the field?
I think
Wouldn't it be better that way?
To not rush him.
Yeah. Would it be better to not rush him and make sure that knee is a little closer to 100%? I mean,
I think the injury that Mahomes suffered, it took him out for like 4 or 6 weeks. Or I think it was really just 4 weeks. Because he came back a game after Tyreek Hill came back, I believe. I'm not sure.
But I think that it may feel rushed, but I can understand where the Packers are coming from to try and see if he can. He's going to be a limited participant in practice, but I think the bigger thing will be is he going to feel well enough? I think the easing him back into the practice schedule is going to be reasonable enough. I mean, this kind of runs along. The next one that I really want to throw out there, and I think this should probably be the most important because I know that we're kind of eating up clock here. Mel Kiper Jr. has called for 2 high safeties to be banned in the NFL as deep passing has been reduced severely. If the NFL were to do that, if the NFL were to consider this, would they think good decision or bad decision as far as this?
Honestly, I think Mel Kiper's full of shit and should stop while he's ahead. ESPN definitely has some clickbaity shit that is on their YouTube page and just in general. I think he needs to stop while he's ahead. either be a crappy NFL draft scout person that predicts crappy things to happen, or maybe, just maybe, watch college football instead.
Here is where I go with this. This is a bad decision. This would be a bad decision. Too high safety. This is basically the cover 2 shell. It's kind of a fundamental defense in football. You're either going to play 1 high, 2 high, or nothing there. If you're going to throw the ball in cover 2, generally you want to get to the corners where the safety doesn't quite have the difficult angle. Work whatever you can in the amongst the underneath. Or do what other NFL teams have kind of seemed to do and adjust with, as they had remember how we had this whole devaluing the running back moment? Now going to be in the position of saying what they need to do now is run the football. All these teams that are now having elite running backs are being able to do this, running the football and being effective doing it that way.
So what you're telling me is it's a Troy Aikman step of establishing the run.
Well, I think that now the teams that have done it correctly have the running backs to be able to adapt to what the 2 high safeties are doing. You're either going to run the seam with corners to force safeties to make decisions. 2 high safety means you've got 2 of them, 1 on each side, to be able to communicate the decision of which direction they are going to go. In short, the game in the NFL has adjusted to the point of saying, oh, teams that are going to try and simply throw the ball on you? Nah. Let me talk to you about this and saying that now we're going to run the ball at you. We're now going to run the ball again. And it's not a niche way of doing it. That's kind of a fundamental football way of stopping what teams were doing before. The NFL was so pass happy at a point because teams were doing more of the blitzing, and having the top come off and the top was coming off of the defense. But also, players on each side of the ball are becoming much more athletic, much faster. There's motions and wrinkles that are constantly being added into the NFL game, that this is a way that you have to adjust. And I think what Mel Kiper is having kind of like a conniption fit over is simply that the culture of what football is doing in situations is shifting on him again. And he's trying to do the whole, you don't have the stones to throw it down the field. No, there's 2 high safety there saying, hey, we don't need to throw the ball down the field. We could do a little more of this dink and dunk. But then, because the dinking and dunking is doing so well underneath, you're not only going to be able to get the underneath yardage, but now those safeties but now the linebackers are also coming back in cover 2, that you can kind of run around a little bit.
Yep. All right. We should probably go into our last segment,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
our.
let's just
Go
move
ahead.
into the stud and the dud now. I think the Lions and the whole more holistic offense is good for them. But I think that we now can move on to our stud and dud of the week. And Ruckus, take it away.
All right. So for the stud, I have the Chiefs' defense for buckling down the Falcons' offense for the most part. I mean, there were a couple times where the Falcons got some touchdowns. There was the time where Drake London had a open no one on him pass. Drake London to from Kirk Cousins touchdown, and then there was, I believe, another touchdown somewhere that I forgot just now. But regardless, I feel like the Chiefs' defense buckling down on the Falcons' offense was good enough for a stud. And for my dud, I have the Royals losing streak at 7 games at a time when you shouldn't be losing, especially when you're trying to get to the playoffs and maybe, just maybe, actually compete rather than lose at the worst time possible, especially when it's the last week of the season. Like, come on, man. Like, I know you lost Vinny Pasquantino, but Jesus Christ. Anyways, Spanish, go ahead.
First of all, I think an honorable mention here is the fact that Ruckus and Andy Reid have both not had heart attacks over the last 3 weeks because of how close the Chiefs games have been.
I haven't eaten that many cheeseburgers, so go ahead.
That was all jokes.
I know, that's why I made the joke even better with the cheeseburgers.
All right. But my stud this week goes to Bills safety Damar Hamlin for getting his first career NFL interception against the Jaguars. But what is notable about this is that this happened nearly 2 years after having an incident of cardiac arrest due to just a random thump of the chest on the field against the Bengals a couple of years ago, near the end of the season, that caused the game to be stopped, and a very, very weird, like a lot of weird scenarios that could have possibly happened. But it was a very scary situation for not only him, because his life could have nearly ended at that particular moment, but just every football fan, and just knowing the haphazards of what this is in this sport.
Yeah.
And my dud this week, and this is your dummy of the week, and it goes to Julio Rodriguez. Seattle may nearly be out of the playoffs at this point, but what did not help their cause was that Julio Rodriguez, in a situation where they're in the bottom of the 10th, down 1, bases loaded, not bases loaded, runners at the corners with nobody out, and Rodriguez is on third. He is the second out of a strike him out, throw him out double play and I'm saying, yes, a crucial game because it was an extra innings down 1, as he drifted too far away from the baseline with no urgency to come back to third base, as Randy Arozarena had light hands, yeeted his bat on a swing and a miss, flew past him, and the ball was still live because Rodriguez was off the bag. He was thinking the ball was dead due to it being foul, but the ball was still live. Everyone, even the base coach, is like, get back on the bag, and had no urgency to get back. And he got thrown out, and tagged out by Jazz Chisholm for a strike him out, throw him out double play, and Seattle lost that game. And the John Boy breakdown on it that we watched prior to this episode being recorded was really good, involving that situation. Go ahead and take us out, Ruckus.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast. This is episode number 115. I am Ruckus, always causing a ruckus.
And I'm Ruckus the Menace.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, the best podcast when it comes to sports in the land. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Yep. Deuces, everybody.